the level of sacrifice and action that you're really willing to take makes a huge difference. People can talk a big game and say they want to do something and put a little bit of effort in, put their tippy toes in and do just enough. But I think people definitely underestimate the level of effort and energy that you do need to put in at the start specifically, because that is where you need to break a lot of ground. You've got to build a reputation. You've got to get yourself out there.
How do you get 10,000 people to take a step to the left? What's behind the relentless mindset of a world champion? Why do teams of exceptional talent fail? How do you manage the pressure to perform? These are just some of the curious questions we will attempt to answer as we bring you world leaders, curious minds, exceptional talent, successful CEOs, and incredible human beings who know how to inspire great leaders and are inspiring great leaders themselves. I'm Craig Johns, high performance leadership expert, international speaker, and CEO of Speakers Institute Corporate and World Sport Coach. This is the Inspiring Great Leaders podcast, where the ordinary don't belong. Welcome to the Inspiring Great Leaders podcast. Our guests today are the exceptional minds behind Relentless Education, are dedicated to empowering entrepreneurs and pack a real punch when it comes to running multi-million-dollar enterprises. Andy is a TV and podcast host, WBFF pro athlete, that's bodybuilding for those who are unsure, internationally published author, and renowned business coach and entrepreneur. He built Ultimate You Change Centre from the ground up in Melbourne and now has 28 centres across Australia. In his spare time, he is the CEO and founder of Change Labs. Matt is an accomplished coach and mentor with expertise in building and growing online businesses. He has a passion for helping coaches and online service-based entrepreneurs and has dedicated his career to teaching people how to build the business of their dreams. Combined together, they have masterminded the business Relentless Education, where they empower coaches, consultants, and service-based entrepreneurs to achieve six-figure monthly revenue. I have the pleasure of presenting to you a dynamic duo that love talking about conquering fears, overcoming limitations, and turning failures into stepping stones for success. On the Relentless Education podcast, Andy Anderson and Matt Lavars. Andy and Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us, mate. Great to be here.
Yeah, thank you, Craig. Absolute pleasure.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. It's good fun. So, Andy, question for you. Where did you grow up and what was the big dream when you were a little fella?
Yeah, great question. I grew up in Ballarat, so just out of Victoria in a country town. The big dream when I was growing up was to be a rock star. I was into music. I loved playing music. I was in a band and wanted to tour the globe, playing music, living the rock star lifestyle. So that was the dream.
Were you the front man or were you the guy at the back with the drums or the tambourine?
Not talented enough to be the drummer. I was the front man. I used to write the songs, sing, play guitar. My best mate was on the drums, who DK, who now is an actual real rock star, playing all over Australia with some of the biggest bands in the world, which is great. But yeah, look, it was a lot of fun growing up for sure.
Oh, awesome. And what type of music?
Rock and roll. Yeah, rock, pop punk. You know, we went through our phases. We evolved. We were in a band for like probably 8-9 years or so. So we evolved as musicians and our taste changed, but it was always pretty consistent with like the rock, heavy rock style.
I just need to say that I didn't know this.
There you go. Well, look,
this is fantastic. I'm having such a good time here. I'm thinking, no way. You were a rock star, Andy.
I was a rock star.
Craig, thank you so much for asking this question.
Yeah, absolutely.
I get paid to bring out the tough questions first up, and it looks like we fit the mark. So Jimmy Barnes, Midnight Oil, AC/DC, All of the above.
Classics for sure. Yeah, great. You can't say no to those guys.
Yeah, awesome. And Matt, what's your favorite band?
I would say for me, it's probably more about electronic music. I like listening to, like 80s and 90s kind of pop rock and stuff like that, but I'm not anyone that's ever kind of become overly obsessed about that type of stuff. I'm more into underground electronic music. I like techno music, and I've always a massive trance fan for anyone that listens to electronic music in like the 90s or the 2000s. I grew up going to big like warehouse raves when I was 18, 19, 20, and I really, really love that type of culture. So for me, it was always electronic music, and still now, I still listen to it, but because I'm 38 and I've got 2 kids, my raving days and my clubbing days are like well over, and I'm never going back. I had a friend reach out to me the other day and asked me if I wanted to come to a rave, and I'm like, man, I got children. I want to go to bed by like 8:30, 9 p.m. But yeah, for me, it's electronic. I still listen to it now. I love it.
I think your children's birthday parties, you bring over Andy, and you can bring his rock band, and you can create the mosh pit there, Matt.
That's right.
So where did you grow up, Matt? And what was the big dream for you?
Interestingly, for me, so I grew up in Geelong. So it's one of the things Andy and I kind of like about each other is we both kind of grew up similar areas. We didn't know each other, but grew up in like country Victoria. We always laugh and say we're like, inner bogans. But I grew up in Geelong, and for me, I wanted to be a DJ. I remember when I was 16, I was a really rebellious kid. I got into drugs too early, just trying to like find myself in the wrong crowds and stuff like that. Really angry. And didn't like school, never liked school at all. Never really gelled with any of my teachers. I think I was one of those kids that questioned things too much. I would always be like, why are we learning this? And I never got a good response to asking those questions. And I remember I did a test that said, it was one of those tests that was like, what career should you do when you grow up? And I remember there was just nothing on that career list that I wanted to do. I didn't want to be a plumber or a doctor or anything like that. And I said, I want to be a DJ. And I remember the teacher said to me, she said, you can't do that. And so I left school and I bought turntables and I became a DJ. And I did that whilst washing the dishes at pubs for $10 an hour, smelling horribly. And that was kind of, in a way, it was like, I look back now and I can recognize it was like the beginning of my entrepreneurial kind of journey. I never wanted to go down the mainstream path of education or go down the mainstream path of really anything. I thought, well, if I want to do it, I'm gonna try and find a way, and I'm not going to listen to the people that aren't going to tell me. I think I made a lot of mistakes down that path as well, mainly because of drugs. But it was the beginning of my first business in a way. Doing something that I love.
I like that. So I'm just going to test something here. So Andy, did you finish high school?
No, I did not. No.
Okay, good. All right. So it's fascinating, right? So you both run education company. Sam, who we were talking about offline, Sam Cawthorne, my business partner, I both failed English, but here we are. We run a communications company, and you both run a entrepreneurial education company. Isn't that fascinating?
Massively. Well, Andy and I have spoken about this a lot. We have a bit of a theory that at 80 to 90% of our members have a level of ADHD or are somewhat on the spectrum. And I have a bit of a theory that kind of lends people to become kind of more entrepreneurial as well, because that they didn't fit in the mold. Schooling now's a lot changing. I've got one of my best friends has got a son with autism, and he has so much support in the school. Like, it's just they make him feel so good. But for us, you didn't even really know what that was really. 20 years ago, it wasn't really that much of a conversation. And so I think that the outliers of education, we're not dumb. And I think that was a big mistake. A lot of people think, oh, I'm dumb because I didn't succeed. It's more that I think the system couldn't tailor it well enough to us. And then now we've built our own to tailor it to those people that needed that extra help. And I think it's, what you guys do and what we do and what so many other people do. It's just, I think it's why these organizations become so successful, because people don't want to go down the middle path. They want something different.
Yeah, we talk about with our team a lot that because I talk about sense of belonging, what creates culture, what brings people together. And we always talk about that for us, we are the happy place for the misfits of the world. And it sounds like you're very much the same, where you're able to attract those that think differently, that that are extremely creative but don't really fit into that mold, and kind of live in a world where when they have conversations with kind of the general public or other people, they feel awkward because people don't quite understand what they do and how they've got there in their own little world.
Right.
So it's a fascinating world we play in.
Well said.
Which is good. Now you left high schools. You're making inroads. Andy, obviously you're making inroads there into your musical career, but you make a shift. For you, how did you end up in bodybuilding?
Yeah, so look, I left school early. I became a chippy, went into building, didn't know what I wanted to do except play music. So I thought, look, I'm not great at school. I'm causing a lot of trouble. I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna make some money. My father died when I was 15, so I needed to bring some income into the home and take care of my mum and my little brothers. So best thing for me to do was leave school. Did that, went off and became a chippy. That was a great journey. Learned a lot of great skills that I utilized later on. But I knew I was meant for more. I just had this feeling inside that it wasn't enough. I'd often go to work and just look around. And again, I love tradies. A lot of my best mates are tradies. I learned a lot from the trade. But I was looking around thinking to myself, there's got to be more to life than this for me. You had, a lot of the old boys were coming in, complaining about the missus, complaining about this, that, hungover, just really unhappy. And I was thinking, no, I need something bigger than this. I need to leave the trade and go off and explore something that's going to really light me up every single day. And so at that stage, I was losing a lot of weight. I was training, and I was really passionate about health and fitness. So I decided to jump into being a personal trainer, and I left the trade, did my certs, became a personal trainer, and got a gig in Melbourne at Big Fitness First in Melbourne, and became one of the top trainers out of about 40 trainers there. So I was super competitive, really, really learned my skills in business and sales as a PT. And from there, I, again, got sick and tired of the norm and knew that I could go out there and do something bigger and better. And so I decided that I wanted to go out and be an entrepreneur and build my own gym and build my own business. So from that point, I went out and I launched a bunch of boot camps around Melbourne. We had about 6-7 locations, really filled those up. They started to pump, but it was so seasonal. Like, as you know, in Melbourne, the weather is horrific, absolutely terrible. Hence why I moved to Gold Coast. Same with Maddie. We got the hell out of there very quickly.
You got the pass. You got the lead pass.
Yeah, exactly. And so, the weather was seasonal, and winter was shocking for business. Summer was great, but we needed that consistency. And I had a really clear vision of the sort of concept that I wanted to create back then, which was a combination of mindset, psychology, nutrition and training, really community focused. And although that sounds pretty common, back then, no one was really doing mindset the way that we were doing it. No one really integrated personal development the way that we integrated it. And so, I went out, figured out how to raise capital, raised about $500,000, got a location in South Bank, and we launched our first gym, and that was Ultimate You, and sort of grew it from one location to 18 locations, and then continued my entrepreneurial journey from there.
So for you, was it like a deep burning desire to overcome and kind of prove people wrong, like a bit of an angry mindset, or was it more to that real curiosity of, I'm seeing things happen in the world, there's got to be a better way?
Look, a bit of both, for sure. It's a combination, and I think it's pretty unhealthy just to be in one of those categories all of the time. You've got to be super curious and passionate, but you've got to have a little bit of grit and a little bit of anger. I definitely had a little bit of anger that drove me. If anyone doubted me, I used it as fuel, and still to this day, it's one of my greatest fuels. When I know someone doesn't fully believe the vision, or they don't think I'm capable, they don't think I can pull something off, I put that in there, I put that in here, and I use that to push me through those challenging moments and take me to new heights and levels. So I think both are really great elements of inspiration and motivation, for sure. And I've used both equally as powerful over my time.
I always find the most successful people in the world generally have some fire, some fuel burning in their belly, something deep inside that, when they trigger really sparks them up. And, you look at someone, I remember being in conversations with Lance Armstrong around an event we were going to run as a man versus man, like a one-on-one type event. And that guy is he's just so fueled from his younger days. And then obviously the cancer thing that he just, there was nothing going to stop him. And obviously he went to a point where, and we find this quite often, right? Where they'll go to a point where they go, unless someone puts boundaries in place, man, they just keep going. And there's nothing in the world that is off limits, so to speak, when it goes to, I'm going to prove everything wrong. Yeah, everyone that I can do it type thing.
For sure. No, I completely agree. I think you got to have that fight within you. And, part of the fight was not having much growing up and wanting a better life for myself, for my mum, for my family, etc. And then, the other fight is really trying to prove the world wrong and prove yourself right on that journey to success.
That's good. Matt, were you similar? You talked about the drugs and trying to, it was kind of a way out for you a little bit. Where was the kind of, what was fueling you, and when was kind of that pivotal moment where you kind of broke out of that and were able to focus in and go, hey, look, this is my direction. This is what I need to do on this planet.
Yeah. So for me, I guess I got a pretty common story. Mom and dad broke up when I was really young. And so I didn't really have my dad around. I love my dad now. He's an amazing guy, but it just, I didn't have that leadership. My mom did the best that she could, but she was a single mom of 3 kids, and she's got a lot on her plate. And so, I didn't know it as a kid. I know it now, but for me, drugs and everything, it was just an escape. It was just a way to not deal with stuff. But as a kid, I just thought, I'm cool and I'm doing, what my other friends are doing, and just really, I guess, immature to the whole thing and immature to the consequences as well. So I was in the DJ and partying scene, and I never ever thought of myself as a drug addict, because I'm we just party on the weekends. It's not like we're addicted to heroin or something like that, But the thing that I saw was that in the circles that I was friends with, I always remember we were all 15, to 18, 20. And then there was the older brothers of our friends, and the older brothers were into hard drugs. The older brothers were in the banditos, bikie gangs, and the older brothers were in and out of jail. And I remember there was a point when I kind of I started to pay attention to that, and I thought, okay, where am I heading? I remember kind of just thinking about it a couple of times. I'm where am I heading? Because it right now, it's kind of I'm in this point where I'm making mistakes, but I got in trouble with the police a bunch of times, but nothing was overly serious. I kind of was always, the way I thought about it was I was always one step away from doing something overly stupid, but I never took that step. I never hit a really serious consequence. But I remember thinking to myself, well, where are you going to go? Because if you follow this path, you've kind of got some examples of what it's going to look like if you don't do anything different in 5, 10, 20 years. And I had a couple of friends die from drug overdoses. I had some friends when I was 16. I had one of my closest friends commit suicide. And I started to see some stuff that was horrible happen around me. And I remember, I don't know if it was a moment or if it was a series of moments, but the question was is this the future that you want? And I remember just thinking a really strong, no, this isn't it. I remember looking at most of my friends had broken homes. So I remember looking at that and thinking, that's not what I want. I remember looking at people working jobs that were unhappy. I remember thinking, that's not what I want. I don't want that. I'm not going to just accept that. Weirdly enough, for someone who grew up in Geelong, I don't like sport. Everyone barracks for either Geelong or, and I didn't like cricket. I didn't like sport. My dad's a massive Essendon fan. I never understood it. And so I never also wanted to go to the pub and just live that lifestyle. I never wanted to be the guy who clocks off work, drinks beers, and, and that's it. And so to me, I didn't have anything to move towards. I only had stuff to move away from, but that was enough. And I just thought, okay, well, what do I want? And initially, the simplicity of my decision-making was not that. So I need to find something else. And then I was really blessed multiple times to have mentors that I met mainly through work. So I remember I got a job selling Foxtel, and the person who was my boss, her name was Kath. She was an older lady. Like, I remember I would have been like 22. She's probably like 65. And she didn't even own a television, which I thought was awesome because she sold TV, but she dressed impeccably. And she was a great salesperson. She was like the number one salesperson. And she would teach me things like about self-respect through dress and through communication. And then I remember when I actually became a personal trainer similar to Andy. And I had another boss there. His name was Bill. And he was this big Samoan guy. And he was such a strong guy, but he was the kindest soul. And he kind of taught me again about like respect. Like, you don't have to fight for everything. You can have calm certainty and calm leadership. And really it was a journey of mainly through employment that I just met person after person after person. Until probably like a lot of people, I watched a Tony Robbins video. I don't know how many people I've heard tell the story that includes, and then I saw a Tony Robbins video, but I saw a Tony Robbins video and I'm like, who is this guy? And to me, he was just the next level of like, okay, these people have something that I don't have. And I just remember thinking, well, I need to listen to them. That was my simple decision making. They have stuff I don't have. They have a happiness that I don't have. They have a purpose that I don't have. They have a quality of life in fulfillment that I don't have. So I'm just going to listen to them. I'm going to spend time with them. And I think one of the hardest things for me was to stop spending time with people that weren't moving in the same direction as me. I found that very, very hard. I still love everyone that I've spent time with, but I very much had to disconnect from a lot of people because and I know people that have never changed, that they, and it's bad for them now because they're adults. But yeah, it really became a curiosity of personal development, which then probably became like a healthy addiction, to just surround myself with messages of growth. And for me, as a kid that never really liked school, I started loving the feeling of empowerment because I thought, wow, education is the answer to all of my problems. If I can learn stuff, then I can change things. And to me, that was just like a revelation. And, it's part of the reason that Andy and I have the company that we have now, because we just believe so strongly in anyone being able to change their situation through learning some new skills that they don't have access to.
I love that. Love that. You're dealing with a lot of entrepreneurs, and I'm sure you've seen many others that may not be directly with you over time. And, a lot of people fail when it comes to entrepreneurial ventures, etc. They go into it with a lot of passion. We've seen it during COVID. Everyone's gone, hey, I'm not sure I like this working for someone else thing. I've got this big passion. And they go off and I just want to work for myself because I don't want anyone else telling me what to do or putting boundaries in place. And a lot of them have gone back to working for people again. So for you, Andy, and both of you can jump in here whenever you feel right. What is the difference between an entrepreneur that kind of just gets by compared to those that really thrive?
Yeah, look, great question. I think the level of sacrifice and action that you're really willing to take makes a huge difference. People can talk a big game and say they want to do something and put a little bit of effort in, put their tippy toes in and do just enough. But I think people definitely underestimate the level of effort and energy that you do need to put in at the start specifically, because that is where you need to break a lot of ground. You've got to build a reputation. You've got to get yourself out there. You're juggling every single hat in the business, not just the speaker or not just the star. You're doing the admin, you're doing the tech, you're working in the CRM, you're prospecting, you're selling. And for a lot of people jumping in the game, not only are you doing those roles, but you're learning those roles. Me and Matt are blessed right now because we know the game well after all the years. So we're jumping in and we're doing the work, not really having to learn the work. But in the beginning, I was raising capital. I was learning about money. I was learning how to raise capital. I was learning sales. I was learning marketing. I was building. I was doing every single thing at the same time. And if you do not have the self-belief, the energy, and the effort to stay consistent in that phase, then you're going to give up. It's going to get very overwhelming. And when you underestimate it, it just hits you really hard. And a lot of people don't have the grit and tenacity to sort of see that phase through. So, as as an early stage entrepreneur, I think you really need to understand that it is a journey of consistency. It's a journey of resilience. It's a journey of massive action and effort, and you're learning and applying all the way through that. And it's the people that stay consistent and don't give up that make it through. And it's the people that get overwhelmed and give up clearly are the ones that go back to working for someone else. So I think you really need to pay attention to those facts as you enter the entrepreneurial game.
Matt, it kind of, the vision that has popped into my head then, and it goes back to my childhood watching the Flintstones, is kind of that big boulder where it's really hard to kind of get leverage to get the boulder moving, but once it's moving, you've got to keep it going, right? Entrepreneurship's all about momentum, and you can't sit back at all and just kind of go, hey, that was good, I'm doing really well. Like, you can't pull, you've got to keep that foot on the accelerator, don't you?
For sure. I think an unpopular message that people don't want to hear, especially in the beginning, is that it's quite hard to do. But I think it's important just to accept hard things. Andy and I talk about this a lot. It's okay for something to be hard. It doesn't mean we should avoid it. All the good stuff in life is hard. Craig, you and I were talking about being fathers. I believe parenting is definitely one of the hardest things I've done, for sure. And I think it will. I've spoken to parents that have 18-year-old kids and 30-year-old kids, and people always tell me it's like it doesn't necessarily get easier. The hard just changes from a version of hard into a different version of hard. Mm. But I think if you have a mindset where you're okay with hard things, then you can love it and you can love the journey, and you can love hard work. So, for example, I got a wisdom tooth taken out last week, and so it knocked me out. This is the first day that this doesn't look like a soccer ball on my face. Excuse me. And so last week was tough. I didn't exercise at all, and I just was really knocked out. Today I went to the gym just before this, before our meeting today, and the workout was really, really hard. I didn't really enjoy it too much. I only got about half of it done, but I still got it done. And I think that's got to be the commitment in business. It's kind of like how much tolerance do you have for really hard things? One of the things that I love about what you guys do, Craig, in speaking, because I'm a speaker as well, and I've done all the hard things. Like, I've woken up in the morning and spent an hour reciting lines, and I've tried so hard to remove. I remember, what was it? I used to just to remove like idiosyncrasies, like ums and ahs. I used to have a rubber band, and I'd flick it on my arm every time I said like too much or or ah. And, I know a lot of people, they just can't be bothered putting in the, 3-6 months of pain that it takes to remove something. But once you're willing to put in the work, then you get to spend the rest of your life enjoying the fruits of it. And I always say to people, when it comes to entrepreneurship, you have to choose your version of hard. And so for me, I find it hard to run a business sometimes because it's a challenge, but I prefer that hard over the hard of being locked in a corporate job I don't like, with an income I can't control, being forced to go to meetings I don't want to enjoy, being in a culture I probably can't change too much. That to me would be harder than, for example, like a challenge that Andy and I have had recently we hired an amazing person for our team, and we gave them a bunch of responsibility, and then something happened inside their family. We had to let them go. And all of a sudden we've got this massive gaping hole, and we've got to solve it within a month. And we solved it, but it was hard. Now, it doesn't mean we don't like it. It doesn't mean we don't think we're capable of solving it. We're not complaining, but I think the acknowledgement of hard is so important, because people say, sometimes when I say to people in a training, I go, it's hard. I see people's faces go, it's not hard. It's all, it's all enjoyable. I'm like, well, would you say that about giving birth? Do you say giving birth's not hard? Giving birth's hard. Let's just, obviously none of us here are an expert, but I have a wife and she will tell you it's hard. But, the fruits of that are the most joy you'll ever experience through your children. So yeah. Long answer to that question.
Andy, how important is it to have that right mindset of, rather than I have to do something versus I get to do something?
Yeah, great. I love that you said that. I was thinking about that exact phrase yesterday. I think it's really important. I think when you're training yourself to do these hard things, as Matty is highlighting, it serves you at the greatest level to shift your language, reframe how you're thinking and feeling about it, and definitely approach it with, I get to do this. It's so important as an entrepreneur. No one's forcing you to play this game. No one's forcing you to get into the arena. If you want an easy life, if you want to chill, guess what? If you're in Australia, this is the best country in the world to live an average life in. You've got that, you've got everyone taking care of you. The government's going to be looking after you. You're set up. So if that's what you want, that's fine. But if you're in the entrepreneurial game and you want to be a speaker, you want to be a coach, you want to run businesses, then showing up with, I get to do this every single day, even those challenging moments, even when you're tired, even when everything's going to shit, which happens frequently in business. Let's talk about the reality of it. You get to play that game. You get to have those experiences, good or bad. And I think that mindset is crucial to the most successful entrepreneurs in the world. And again, maybe one of the points of difference in those entrepreneurs that don't succeed is that reframe, is that they don't approach life and those challenging moments with, I get to. They still unfortunately have that employee mentality where they feel like everything's an obligation.
Matt, you spoke about before, who's going to go with this? Around the challenge or the hard work that's required to get something done. And, we're talking about mindset here of that shift in thinking from actually, I know what I'm going to go over this. All right. So you talk about being a speaker. And so, getting up and being a speaker, you're very self-centered to begin with, right? For most speakers, you're very self-centered because you're very raw and naked and exposed when you're on stage. It's very different to just having a conversation one-on-one or sitting around the water cooler, so to speak. When you're up on stage, you're exposed. So that intentional mindset of, am I saying the right thing? How do I look? What are people thinking? What if I say something wrong? What if someone believes something different? How am I going to respond? What if I need to go to the bathroom? So that real self-centeredness versus that intention of what's holding you back and how can I help? For you, how was that shift in mindset to shift around going into that service mindset versus I've got something to share mindset?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think that applies to business and sales and relationships as well. I think that speaking is such a good example of it because it's so magnified. It's like I always say to people that once you're on stage, you have nowhere to hide. People see everything. They're just watching all of it. And you think you can hide, but you can't. You can't really hide an emotion or anything. It's going to come up. And so, yeah, I did very much start like that. I think I started like that in business, but also started like that in life. It was, I think that originally I wanted to be a speaker because I wanted to be adored. I wanted people to be like, oh my God, Matt Lavars. And I got that for a period of time. But then what I learned is it doesn't mean anything. Nothing changes. It's kind of like, so what after a while? It's like, okay, some people that I don't really know think I'm intelligent. Cool. But nothing changes, nothing happens. And I think in business, it's very, very similar to the conversation around money. It's like, money's great, but after a while, you got to ask yourself a question: for what purpose? Like, what am I doing with this? I'm not just storing it all up in the bank and going, yeah, or let's buy another car. After a while, you go, well, do I need 3 cars? I don't know. Isn't just 1 car enough? Or how many shirts do I need? Especially when you're like Andy and I, and you just wear black shirts. How many black shirts do you need? And how good of the quality can the shirt become? And then you just run out of ideas. You move on to something else. I think the natural progression that's really important is understanding that service is the real juice. It's the real takeaway from everything. It's the thing that should drive you. And I love that the world, in a way, it's like the world has been designed that way, where it rewards service. So, for example, the world doesn't reward self-centeredness. So if you're on stage or if you're in business and you're all self-centered, then people aren't going to tune into that. But if you make everything about them, then they will tune into that. And if you put all your bandwidth on the audience or the client in front of you, and if you genuinely want to help them, then you will be rewarded for that, from their time, from their respect, and probably because they'll pay you and they'll want to do work with you. So for me, it was really a lesson. Like I heard quotes like, if you take care of enough people's dreams, your dreams will be taken care of. And I thought, yeah, that's great. But then I learned it, and it was a different thing to actually experience it, and to have the experience of making it about me, and then to have the experience of making it about others. And, I believe that I believe that humanity is, I believe we're all selfish. So I have a Christian worldview, and I believe that we're all inherently naturally selfish. And I don't know, I think it's pretty easy just to look at the world and kind of see that anyway. And I think we have to fight against our natural desire to be selfish, and we have to train ourselves to care about others and to put others first. And I think that when we do that in life and when we do that in business, that's the best way to run a business, is to do it truly from the, like when Andy and I get together, we think, who are we helping? Who are we serving? What does this person need? What does this person need? How are we going to help this person? We don't get together and just say, how much more money can we make this week? How much more cash can we make? Let's get another $5,000 out of that person. Let's just get them to buy something. It would be a horrible way to exist versus coming from service. So I think, I think it's like nearly the only way to do well, unless you want to be, I guess, a scammer and someone that eventually has to keep leaving town because everyone works out your true intentions or something like that.
But Andy, we've got to be selfish at times too, right? There is a point to be selfish. To be service minded. You also need a selfish component, right? You've been a bodybuilder. I mean, for you, what do you think? What are the non-negotiables for an entrepreneur in regards to being selfish, so they can be that best version of themselves? They can be there and 100% service minded when they need to be for their clients in the business.
For sure. Look, I think as an entrepreneur, it's so important that you are taking care of yourself mentally, emotionally, and physically. I mean, those three personal pillars you have to be focused on, have goals around, slowly build up and strengthen yourself in those areas. Because if you are weak in those spaces, then inevitably you're going to show up weak in those spaces for others. And so how can you be 100% for your family, for your community, for your clients, if you are not 100% for yourself? I'm sure you've heard that saying before, but it is so freaking true. So, from a mindset perspective, you've always got to be focusing on understanding the world at a higher level, understanding your thinking strategies, understanding why you do what you do. What are your limiting beliefs? What are your barriers? What are the things holding you back? I mean, it's crucial. From an emotional standpoint and spiritual standpoint, you've got to understand your emotions. You have to be able to control your emotions and work through your emotions. And then from a physical standpoint, you need to be able to live life with energy, zest, vitality. Entrepreneurship rather is I always call it the world's greatest blood sport. It is like being in the UFC. You are a modern day freaking gladiator. Every day you are in the arena fighting. You are cutting down barriers. You are kicking down doors. You are showing up with energy and passion every single day. If you are physically not capable to show up like that, you are only going to be achieving a fraction of what you could possibly achieve. It's that simple. So, for me, I've been, for a very long time, been focused on all of those things. And it's also really important to remember that you need to rent you do rent rather, I guess, your abilities in those areas. You don't just, study a course and do NLP or, go to the gym for a year and all of a sudden you get the privilege of being the best in those areas. It is not like that. Every day you've got to show up and you've got to relearn how to hold yourself at a high standard with your mindset. You've got to relearn every single day how to control your emotions. You've got to relearn how to show up with consistency around nutrition, training, and your energy. And so those things are rented. You got to pay rent, pay your dues every single day. And it doesn't matter how good you think you are in those spaces. There are moments where you're going to default to a lower version of yourself. But the better you are at recognizing that and having that self-awareness, the faster you can come back better, stronger, and then show up, and make a better impact in the world and for your clients every single day. So I think those three elements are so important to focus on.
Matt, I think we just hit the first button of Andy's passion there. He kind of come alive then, didn't he? I love this. You spoke about limiting beliefs, Andy, and we hear this a lot, and people are always like, we need to remove your limiting beliefs. My experience is you don't actually remove them, but you learn to manage them. And why is it so important that people spend that time to understand their limiting beliefs? And for those who don't know, maybe explain to them a little bit about what that is.
Look, I mean, I think the biggest thing holding people back is the story they're telling themselves every single day. And, it's a combination of values and beliefs and worldview and media and anything else that's sort of seeping into your brain on a daily basis. But if you are living your life listening to that voice in your head and it's there no matter what, whether you want it there or you don't want it there, it's freaking there. So you're either going to learn to coach it, teach it, and manage it, and let it make it follow your agenda, or you're going to be like majority of the world and you will be following its agenda, which is influenced by all the things out there that you have no control over. And so it's so important to understand the stories that you're telling yourself, the narratives that are running in the background, the way that you view the world, and you're paying attention to that and you're starting to control it. You're starting to write your own story. You are beginning to be that author of your own book, of your own movie. And if you choose to show up in the world every single day with the intention of crafting, shifting, molding that journey and that story, it will start to flow in your direction, in a positive direction, and you will show up so freaking differently. But if you are unawares to this, if you are letting, the world control your story, your perception, your narrative, then it will only go in the world's direction. And as everyone's probably aware, there are too many negative narratives in the world right now. There are too many negative agendas happening simultaneously. Who freaking knows what direction you're going to go in? But I tell you this much, if you give up and you go down any of those directions, it's not going to be as beautiful, impactful, and incredible as your own story and your own narrative. So I think we need to just understand that we are in control if we choose to be aware, and if we choose to show up every single day with the intention to put in the work to write that story in the way that we deserve to have it written.
I love that word choice. Some people talk about sacrifice, but to me it's choices. Unless you decide that someone can remove your arm or your leg, so to speak, that might be a sacrifice, but you still make the decision unless they remove it for you without asking, right? Then you've sacrificed something. Matt, the both of you had really successful entrepreneurial ventures and as business people as well. When you come together, what was it like for you to form a partnership and go into that entrepreneurial space as a team versus being an individual?
Well, one of the things that I always say to people when they get excited about going into a partnership with someone is generally I say, don't do it. It's, partnerships are generally a bad idea and they fail way more than they succeed, especially because I think most people approach it from the stage of their journey of neither people really know their values enough. Neither people know the values of the business they're about to start enough. Neither people know, they don't probably agree on the end point of the business logically enough. And they go into a partnership with passion and excitement. And I've seen this happen before. All of a sudden now the business is worth $1 million or a couple $1 million. One person's decided I'm going to do 10% of the work. The other person's decided I'm going to do 90% of the work. And I've had people, where it's like, well, now I have to buy that person out and I've got to pay them $100,000 or something like that or whatever. And I don't even know if they really deserve it, or friendships fall apart. I've seen it happen over and over again. For Andy and I, it was really a blessing. And I think something neither of us really planned for. So we've known each other for about 10, 12 years. So we've been friends for a long period of time and we've seen each other. I've watched Andy build his gems and I came in and did some training for him a bunch of different times. And Andy and I have shared same mentors and been to a lot of the same education places together. And so we've kind of just been brothers throughout our entrepreneurial journey. And then it just happened to be that we both kind of had some free time at the same time. And initially, I think it was Andy reached out to me and said, could I help you put together some course content? That's really where it started. And I said, sure, love to, man. It's like anything I can do to help out, a mate, someone that I care about. And then that just kind of evolved into, why don't we just start this business together? And when the opportunity came, I just thought, this is perfect, because to me, the most important thing is I know Andy and I know each other's values. We have 10 years of evidence of who we are, of what we stand for. We've seen each other fail and handle it. We've seen each other deal with relationships. So we've got this long-term evidence of who we are. And I think for both of us, that just gives us a whole bunch of trust, just to go, I don't worry about anything, about a decision that's going to be made, because I know Andy and I have the same code, which is do the right thing by your brother, by your family, by your friends. We both believe that to our core. And so I just feel we have so much trust with each other. And I think trust is probably the missing element in any failing organization. Is as soon as you start not trusting people, it's like, then you start sending weird emails, dear sir, madam, you start lying through email and all that corporate stuff. So yeah, the trust is huge. And then because we have the trust, it really does make it easier, because we have two brains, we have two hearts, we have two passions. We don't agree on everything. And I love that, because we'll wrestle with things and we'll go, but yeah, how come and why this? But we both have the same compass. We're both heading in the same direction. I reckon Andy's probably twice as ambitious as I am. And I think it'll probably always be that way. That's just the way that Andy is versus the way that I am. And I love that. I don't feel like I need to be as ambitious. I think there'll be some point where Andy will probably be pulling me along at some point saying, come on, let's do this next thing. And I'll think, all right, let's do it. So I think it's a lot of fun. And the most important thing is that we have shared values. And I think if you're going to go into business with anyone, try and work out, like, do you guys have the same values? And if you don't know what your values are, do not go into a partnership with someone, just contract to them.
For sure. I'll quickly jump in there as well, because it's such a good question. We don't normally get asked this question, so I love that you brought it up. But I think what Maddie said about, going through challenging times and seeing how we both show up in the worst moments rather than just the best moments is such an important thing that a lot of partnerships do not get to experience or see. And because me and Maddie have been such good mates, best mates for ages, we've helped each other through really challenging moments. We've seen each other both extremely vulnerable, and we know how we respond even when we're up against, the worst moments. And so because of that, we can rely on each other, that even if things get tough and challenging and something goes wrong, we know that we're both going to show up with integrity and show up with respect and both be humble and help each other first and foremost, rather than defaulting to selfishness or negativity like a lot of people tend to do if they haven't trained themselves for years and years. And so I think that's one of our unique partnership powers that we have, and we've got many, but that's definitely one of the most important ones.
I'd run a couple of entrepreneurial businesses prior to joining with Sam and creating Speakers Institute Corporate, and they've both been really successful. But I got to a point where I felt like I couldn't scale it, and tried different things, wasn't working. I had made it too much about me as the entrepreneur, and not on purpose. It's just the way it evolved, right? Especially when you are coaching people, things like that, you become that name, and you can surround yourself with people better than you. But most often, people still keep coming to you because you're the one who created the thing, the business. One of the things that Sam mentioned when we first talked about maybe doing business together was the 3 L's of longevity, loyalty, and legacy. And by listening to you there, it sounds very much that same. The loyalty of your friendship, your connection, being able to see how you go through different hard times, the longevity aspect of doing something over a period of time, and then the legacy. What kind of legacy are you looking to lead? And so we look, and when I thought about it, I actually base relationships or working with people the same, and it's around, okay, what is the 3 L's with the person, but what is the 3 L's with us together? And I can see that with both of you, which I think it's really, really powerful. But I know that going into partnership, it lifted the weight off my shoulders. I felt I could take more risks. I felt more confident. It was real it was a real shift in energy as an entrepreneur. Did you find the same, where kind of you felt the weight of the world shift off your shoulders a little bit and you felt like you could take on bigger things?
Yeah, well, look, I think it definitely enables you to move faster when you've got two people with the same vision, both extremely capable, both really hungry to make it work. You can grow a lot faster. You can juggle more balls, and you can both leverage each other's skill sets and passions. And so, I think, again, I think our partnership's quite rare, and I think probably yours and Sam's is as well, which is so freaking phenomenal. And because you've got, two capable, talented people showing up, you can leverage it so much quicker and move so much faster. And that's why, Relentless Education has been able to grow so quickly, and we're so confident in how we're going to scale over the next 2 to 3 years because of those factors. So I think that in our case, it definitely does take a weight off our shoulders. We know that if Matt is sick, then I'm going to jump in. If I'm sick, then he's going to jump in. And, we don't need to question that, or, no, there's no ill will around any of that. We just both do what it takes every single day, and we can have open conversations that'll move us forward fast because, like Matty said, we've got the same vision, the same compass.
So you're working with entrepreneurs. What did you learn about, shifting from that space of being an entrepreneur to now training entrepreneurs? What did you both learn when you started training others that you didn't already know as an entrepreneur previously? And maybe I'll start with Matt.
I would just say that there's a big difference between knowing something yourself and then teaching something to someone else. It's a completely different area of understanding, because everyone learns things differently. And so, I know people that are very, very smart at doing one thing, but they are a horrible teacher of that thing. And so teaching is its own skill set, and learning how to understand all the different personality types that people have and how to cater to all the different learning styles, understanding that everyone operates at different speeds, understanding that people get blocked in different areas. One of the things that we're really passionate about is you turn everything into a system. And so every time we have a student that hits a roadblock, we think, is that unique to them, or is that something that everyone will experience? And if it is something that everyone will experience, how can we add it into our system so the next person that joins already has an answer to that solution? And so I think the biggest thing about education is it's like really seeing that you're building like this organism that's constantly helping your students or your members or your clients, however you see it, get better and better and better. And I think that's the big step for, we find for us, we're working mainly with coaches, anyone that's got a service-based online business. So we do have people in like real estate and education and stuff, but mainly coaches, is for them to move away from, I work with one person one-on-one and I help them with their individual problem, to I'm building a system that helps people get results. And once I've been doing that for maybe 2 or 5 or 10 years, my system is really, really, really good at getting people results. And it has solved so many of the different problems that nearly anyone can come through and get a great result with it. So I think that's that systems way of thinking is probably the biggest step to take in learning how to help people get consistency. One of the things that we've learned, which is just crazy, is that most people in our niche, because we do a lot of competitor analysis and check out what everyone else is up to, most people just don't provide the basics well enough. So, we just double down on answering people's questions really, really quickly. Like that's just so simple. But, we know a lot of our competitors don't do it, or they give, what's it called? Kind of like just blanket answers to things. Like, can you review this? Good job. Instead of like a detailed, well, this bit was not very good, and let me tell you why. And this bit was really good, but you could do it better and say this. And so, like giving people extremely highly detailed feedback and guidance, which is so simple to say it, but that's just an area that we double down on because people need it so much. I think it's hard to do it because it takes more manpower, but it's definitely a way that we've learned to stand out in the industry, is just by giving people tons of help.
Yeah. What have you learned, Andy?
Look, I think it was more of a reminder. What I've relearned in regards to what's holding people back from building their business, going from us running companies for so long and forgetting what it was like to start off from ground zero again, is that, so many people starting businesses, coaches, entrepreneurs, they're really held back by the fear of judgment and the fear of putting themselves out there. They're not taking the action required at the level required because they are really self-conscious and fearful of being judged on social media, being, the fear of failure. And so I just think from a mindset perspective and an emotional perspective, we've really noticed, I know I have, that we're doing a lot of sort of guiding at the start, just around helping them get over themselves, getting over the fear of those elements, to then be able to even apply the hierarchy of principles that we provide. Me and Matt try to give them all killer, no filler, rather than heaps of high level information. We just go in the trenches, step by step, templates, exactly what you need to do. But even to actually apply those actions, it takes energy, it takes self-belief, it takes, doing it. But if you are fearful and paralyzed by that fear, a lot of entrepreneurs can't even think straight, unfortunately. So, it's been really interesting just rewinding the clock and trying to tap back into, how did I feel when I first started raising capital, or first started doing posts, or first started doing videos, because it was so long ago. But, lucky for me and Matt, we're really good at helping people through those challenges quickly. And it's beautiful to see people have those breakthroughs.
Yeah, great. So you're talking about systems here. So for those who are coaches, etc., that are looking to upgrade their skills in entrepreneurial, maybe shift from maybe $5,000 to $10,000 a month to maybe pushing that up to that level of six figures in the future. How does your program work, and what sort of process can they go through, or system?
So what we do is we have put together essentially a step-by-step framework for people, where we take them through the foundational elements to running a business. So part of it's mindset in the beginning, which is really important, which Andy's covered. But then we need to tick off all of the other important elements of a business, like, are you in the right niche? Can you be the leader of that niche? Do you have experience in it? Are people going to look up to you and say, yeah, you can be the leader there? Have you chosen a demographic and an avatar that can actually afford it? Do they want to exchange money with you with a smile, or are they the type of people that are going to say, give me a discount, it's too expensive? And, a lot of people don't get past making decisions on those two things. Those two things are the biggest roadblocks for most people. So we take people through that. Then we help people build out a core offer that's actually scalable. One thing that we're very, very passionate about is the business that you're building a lifestyle that you're actually going to love? Yeah. And I know you'll probably remember the book, Craig, the E-Myth. And I think it's like the first chapter of that book. He talks about how most people start a business, they end up just getting another job they don't like. And, we always teach people, when you're starting a business, think about the end result. What's your day to look like? What's your week to look like? And how does that evolve around your family and your lifestyle and so on and so on? So your product always has to be something that has scale in it. And so, for example, like Andy and I run this education company, which is just thriving. And it's about three days a week for both of us, because Andy runs multiple gyms and I've got two small kids, and I'm very, very happy with my workload currently. And then the next thing is it's really about marketing. And most people aren't very good at this, but you've got to have high value free offers that you can give to people. And so we don't think there's a one size fits all. We know a lot of our competitors only do Facebook ads or only do challenges, and they've drilled down on that. We think it's important to kind of teach people all the different ways that you can generate leads free or for a small amount of money. And then really it's just about sales. And so that's kind of our 5-pillar system. Our 6th pillar, which is really important, is consistent improvement. And so we're very, very passionate about, you'll never be perfect. So the first iteration of your business that you launch inside your first 12 months probably won't be that good. But in the next year, you can make it better. And in the 3rd year, you can make it better. And then the 10th year, you can make it better. And then it's going to be really good. Instead of what a lot of people do is they say, well, I'm never going to be as good as my competitors, so I'm not going to begin. And, we really believe that statement, that you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. And so our last pillar is like, you go back and you make it better.
Makes you think back to the early days of this business, where Literally, I'm very strategically minded, very analytical, very detailed. Teach people a lot about the importance of competitive analysis and strategy, etc. For this business here, we did zero competitive analysis.
Wow.
On purpose, because we didn't want to be competing against someone else. We didn't want to be distracted by what other people were doing or having to try and go, oh, they're doing that, so how do we manipulate it? We just really wanted to go in with a mindset of what does the client need and how can we produce a world-class version of that? And so we literally keep our slate clean all the time, which has been a fascinating approach. And to this day, I still don't know who our competitors are.
Wow. Good on you.
Or what they do. And so it's been a real different mindset, because I know with a lot of entrepreneurs, you really need clarity on that. So it's been a different shift, just a different approach for us that has really, really worked. All right. So in regards to mindset, Andy, we've kind of touched along a little bit here that people in that mindset of, I'm never going to be able to achieve that. Look at what they're doing. It's kind of, they see what everyone else is going on and going, wow, that's too big a jump, too big a leap, to go from where I am to way up here. So from a mindset point of view, how can people take, kind of those small steps along the way to be able to adjust so that they can feel confident enough to take on the big boys and big girls of town?
Look, I think you need to have a vision for your future. You got to have a vision for your business and where you want to take that. But of course, on the journey to that end result, there's got to be clear milestones, and you've got to have the perspective, the realistic perspective and understanding of how a business actually grows and the milestones that are achieved along that way. So I'm all about big vision, and I need something that really gets my juices flowing, that I know it's going to be worth fighting for, sacrificing for, having shit days for, all of those things. That vision gets me up in the morning. But I also then realize that every day there's got to be certain milestones to achieve. And although there's coaching and education businesses out there doing 50 million, 100 million per year, I always look at those businesses. I go, I love that. I love that they're doing so well, because I know if they can do it, we can do it, damn straight. But I also, I don't go comparing my chapter 1 to their chapter 50. I want to compare my chapter 1 to their chapter 1. I like looking into detail around how many years have they been going for? What were they achieving in month 1 to, year 1, year 2, having a realistic perspective of that growth. And then very quickly, if you're in the comparison game, I try to do it from a healthy perspective, to give me little milestones. So I'm accurately benchmarking myself. But the thing that really does just keep motivating me is those little wins on the way to my big vision. So, I think that it's important to have awareness in the marketplace. I think it's really important to benchmark yourself, because you have to challenge yourself and know when you're getting complacent, if you're getting complacent. I love the competitive nature of business, sports, everything. I'm super competitive. So I like to have people that I'm chasing down and have I guess, the end, not real enemies, but, people that I'm fighting against and working hard to beat every single day. That excites me. But I look at it from a healthy angle and a resourceful angle, and I just make sure that it's benchmarked accurately, so I'm not judging myself negatively.
Love that. All right. We all know smart people have great answers, but the most successful people ask great questions. All right. So because we've got 2 on the show today, let's keep our responses pretty short on these ones. And we'll go Matt and then Andy first on these 3 questions. When was the last time you did something for the first time?
Oh, I would say over the weekends, I went to a kind of like a spiritual event. I won't go into massive detail, but it's something that I don't normally do. It was kind of like a cabin in the woods kind of thing. It was, like an opportunity to come together and to bond with a group of people. And normally I'm like really judgmental of stuff that I don't understand. So normally I sit back and I go, and I make assumptions and judgments and things like that. But I wanted to, one of the things that I'm practicing is to not just judge people because they're different, or not judge people because I don't understand them, and not quickly go to that. I'm inspired to do that more and more now, because I think our world politically does it way more than it's ever done it before. It's like, you're on the left, you're on the right, and so that was a thing for me that was out of my comfort zone, and I learned a lot about some beautiful people that I'd never met before. So it was a good experience. It worked.
Great. Andy?
For me, like 2 weeks ago, I started doing Muay Thai. So tried Muay Thai. I mean, I've done a lot of martial arts and I do jiu-jitsu and things like that, but I jumped into another combat sport and just to be well-rounded and have some fun. So that was the first time I jumped into that.
Nice. I love it with a Muay Thai. Yeah. Andy, you'll go first on this one. What is the one question that you would love to solve?
The one question, the one challenge that I'd love to solve. Great question. I mean, I'd love to be able to solve the challenge or the question of what is my purpose. If I could do that for people like that would be a massive gift. I know it's something that troubles a lot of people, that weighs a lot of people down, and that would be amazing if I had an ultra hack to that question.
You might need more than just one cash register, I think, for that one.
Yeah.
Matt?
So for me, I started studying relationship probably about 4 years ago. Started studying the science of attachment, did some really great courses around that. I've just been blown away by how much and science backs this, just how much we require intimacy and closeness in our relationships for mental and emotional wellness and self-esteem. And I see so many people so separate from each other. So I think, one of the things that breaks my heart is just how many people don't know how much they need each other and how much they need community, and how loneliness is such a massive problem, especially for men and young boys. So yeah, one problem that I wish I could solve would be, how do we get people, or how do we get education to teach that, or to embody that, to really come from a place of like, community is the most important thing. Because we, in the Western world, we're so separate. We nearly pride ourselves on standing really far away from each other, no matter where we are, right? Get away, you're too close. So that would be my thing that I'd try and solve if I could.
Okay, great. For you, Matt, what is an inspiring great leader, and who is a great example of this for you?
So I think a great leader is someone who does everything that they say. I think that they don't lead from a show perspective. They are a demonstration of everything that they teach. And I think that I've met a lot of leaders that say they are something that they're not, which I think is unfortunate. Or they are like that on stage, if that kind of makes sense. And then behind you go, oh, it's disappointing. It's not really who you're telling us that you need to be.
Yeah.
And I believe the ultimate example of that is in the Bible. I believe that's Jesus, the ultimate example of a great leader, a great demonstrator of the closest thing you're ever going to get to like a perfect human being.
Andy?
Look, I've had a lot of great mentors and a lot of great leaders in my life. And I think a great leader, an outstanding leader, is someone that shows up in the face of adversity and challenge with integrity, and faces fear, faces adversity, whether they feel like it or not. They lead with humility. They lead with certainty, even when they're scared, even when they're fearful. And they challenge others to step up and do the same. They challenge others to step up into their greatness, even when they don't want to. And for me, one of those leaders was mentor Sam from the US. He's passed away now, but he was one of those great mentors and leaders for me, and he taught me a lot.
Beautiful. How can people learn more about what you do, and what is the best way for people to connect with you? So Andy, you want to lead off?
Yeah, well, you can find out more about what me and Maddie do at Relentless Education, www.relentlesseducation.com.au. You can also follow me on Instagram. I spend a lot of my time there at Andy_I_Anderson.
Brilliant. And Matt, are you a TikTok, Snapchatter, LinkedIn? Where do we find you?
I'm just kind of like old school Facebook guy. I can't be bothered, to be honest. I've got too much on my plate. So you can find me on Facebook. I am on Instagram though. But best thing to do is just, go to our website, relentlesseducation.com.au. There's a bunch of free things you can get involved in, download some stuff, get a little bit of support from how we can help you grow your business.
Brilliant. No MySpace account?
Yeah, that's more me. MySpace, like showing my my interest in the Backstreet Boys is my number one album.
It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with both of you today. Thanks, Andy and Matt. I've loved kind of understanding the backstory to both of you and kind of the way you saw the world when you were younger and how you transitioned through that and the questions you asked in the world. I think that's really important as leaders and entrepreneurs, that you think you be curious and you look at the questions that can really inspire change in the world and change for you as well, so you can be able to serve people more effectively. I like the insights into both mindset and maybe what holds people back, and I love what you're doing there with Relentless Education and just empowering entrepreneurs, especially those coming in new in that online coaching space, to really think about it from a system perspective and to be able to put those real basics in place from the beginning and understand who your avatar is, know where your vision is, and then really be able to put in that hard work. And anyone who tells you can do a 4-hour working week, by the way, Tim Ferriss does about 100 hours looking at all the work that he does. So you've got to put the hard work in if you really want to get those big results and achieve those dreams. So thanks to both of you. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for having us, mate.
Yeah, thank you, Craig.
It's time for you to join the Inspiring Great Leaders movement by visiting craigjohns.com.au. Share this podcast on LinkedIn and be sure to hashtag Inspiring Great Leaders. We would love it if you could leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Drop us a line with your feedback and questions and connect with us on the Craig Johns LinkedIn, Facebook and Instagram pages. Be sure to check out the next Inspiring Great Leaders podcast, where the ordinary don't belong.